extra little bits. Repeat this method of slicing out debris until your image is clean. When you're done cleaning up the image, you should have only a single layer in your layers panel. This is the handwriting sample set that is labeled pen. At this point, make sure your image is still the size you want, 8 inches, so that looks good. And after slicing out extra parts, you might have to adjust it, if you had to remove a border or something like that. So just double check that part. Step 2, fill handwriting with crosshatch. So click on your handwriting sample to select it if it's not already selected. Then click on Duplicate at the top of the Layers panel. Click on it twice so that you have 3 identical layers. There we go. Now click on Select All at the top of the menu. Click on Align and choose Center. There we go. This stacks them all directly on top of each other on the canvas. At this point, make sure your image is still the size you want. It's still 8 inches, that looks great. Step 2, fill your handwriting with cross-hatching in Design Space. Now we need to download my crosshatch fill design from my free resource library so we can upload it to the canvas. It's design number 331. Just go to the red bar at the top and look for libraries, and then either click Get a Password if you don't yet have one, or click Enter the library. You can find the pattern by searching the page for design number 331 and then click it to download the SVG. So first, upload the SVG file to Cricut Design Space. If you're unsure how to unzip and upload SVG files, please watch my SVGs Made Simple training series at jennifermaker.com/SVGS. So we want the pen, foil, engrave, fill hatch, Jennifer Maker-SVG file. And we'll click Open. That's what it looks like, and we click Upload. And we will add it to our canvas. This crosshatch fill consists of 2 layers, which you can see right here, contain diagonal lines going in opposite directions. You can use this crosshatch design to fill your handwriting sample so it will look filled in when you use your Cricut machine to draw, foil, or engrave it. Otherwise, without the crosshatch fill, your handwriting sample will only be an outline, much like you see right here. So it's just an outline of the letters right now. So once you have the crosshatch design uploaded, change the operation type under the operation menu from basic to pen. Now everything is a pen layer. Drag the crosshatch fill group over your handwriting layers. So let's zoom out a little bit here, and let's put it so that it's over our layers like this. If the hatch design doesn't completely cover your handwriting sample, simply duplicate the group by clicking on the Duplicate button right here at the top of the Layers panel, and then slide the duplicated group over so it's next to the crosshatch layers, just like this. You want to zoom in really close to make sure they're touching but not overlapping. So let's get in here nice and close. We want them to touch but not overlap. I think that's as good as we're going to get. I think that's fine. Now, if you need to, keep duplicating and moving the crosshatch until your entire handwriting sample is covered. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select both of these and click Duplicate, and then drag them down here like that. And we'll want to zoom in again to make sure we're not overlapping a bunch. And we are overlapping a little bit. That looks good. And then we'll duplicate one more time and move it down to the bottom to cover the bottom section there. There we go. Now we've completely covered our handwriting sample with the crosshatch. So mine took 6 duplicated groups of the crosshatch fill to cover the entire cake drawing and recipe. Once you have the edges of the crosshatch fill layers touching but not overlapping, click on Select All in the top bar right here to select all of your layers. And with everything selected, go to the Size section in the top menu, right up here, and make sure the lock is locked so that everything resizes proportionately together. Now multiply the size by 10. So in my case, all of the layers selected together measure 8.5 inches wide. So I'm going to change my size to 85 inches, just like this. Now let's zoom out so we can see it. it's quite large. You might want to make your window bigger if you can't quite see it all. Now select the top layer of each hatch group by holding down the Shift key while selecting them in the Layers panel, just like this. And there should be, in my case, there's 6 of them. You may have more or less. Now click on Weld down at the bottom of the Layers panel. The 6 layers merge into one and get moved to the top of the Layers panel. So they're right up here. Now select the remaining 6 hatch layers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, you want to hold down that Shift key and weld those in the same way. There we go. Now you're back to having those 2 layers again for the crosshatch, but they now cover your entire handwriting image. The layers will be huge and you will be able to see all the hatches clearly, but don't worry about any error icons that you see here on the side right now, because we're going to change the sizes back down later after we fill in our handwriting sample with the hatches. This step just helps us get a really clean crosshatch fill. Now hide 2 of the 3 handwriting layers by clicking on the eyeball icon on those layers. We will use them later. Also hide 1 of the 2 hatch layers like this. Now Shift click to select the 1 remaining visible handwriting layer here and the 1 remaining visible hatch layer here, and click Slice at the bottom of the Layers panel. This will only work if you have just the 2 layers selected. If there's any more than 2 layers selected, the slice will not work. So make sure just 2 layers. So go ahead and click Slice. There we go. We now have new slice results. So once Design Space is done slicing, you'll end up with 4 visible layers. Click on the layer that looks like a box, which is this one right here, and go ahead and click Delete. We don't need that one. And then look at the remaining layers by toggling the eyes on and off. So we'll toggle this one off, and this one off, and this one off. Choose the one that looks the best to you and delete the other 2. You should be left with 1 visible layer when you finish that. This one looks pretty good. And so does this one. Okay, so I'll delete this one. All right, so we'll delete this one here too. Delete. There we go. So we have this crosshatch fill. Feel free to zoom in and out on your canvas to see your filled image. So when you have selected it, go ahead and hide it. So once you've chosen it, that 1 remaining image, you can hide it. Now repeat the process with the other hatch fill layer and another handwriting layer. So show 1 of the remaining original handwriting sample layers by clicking on the eye icon. And then also show the other hatch line layer. You will have 2 layers showing now, a handwriting layer and the other diagonal hatch line. Hold your Shift key on your keyboard and click to select both layers in the Layers panel, and then click Slice. When Design Space is done processing, you'll have 4 visible layers. Again, delete the 3 that you don't want. You now will have just 1 visible layer, in which we can see right here. And that is your handwriting sample with the diagonal lines, but going in the opposite direction as your first slice layer. Now toggle on all of your eye icons so you can see all of the layers. Your layers should all be aligned perfectly, and your handwriting outline should be filled with a crosshatch, which it is. These are the 3 layers that you will have. 1 outline, which is right here at the bottom, 1 filled with right-hand diagonal lines, and 1 filled with left-hand diagonal lines. If your layers are somehow not aligned correctly, go ahead and recenter them by clicking on Select All in the top menu bar, and then click on Align and choose Center. This is what my outline layer looks like. This is what my right-hand diagonal layer looks like. And this is what my left-hand diagonal layer looks like. And this is what my recipe looks like when all 3 are together. Does this look cool? With all 3 layers selected, so let's make sure to select all, click on Attach at the bottom of the Layers panel. Now to change the size back to your original size, just divide the new width by 10. So I'm going to change mine back to 8 inches. We type 8 in the size menu and press return on the keyboard. And we'll need to zoom back out so we can see our recipe. There we go. This is a great time to save your project. So just go up to the Save menu and choose Save or Save As based on your needs. Step 3, transferring infusible ink to a tea towel. Now we're ready to draw these with infusible ink pens. Select your Cricut machine up here. I'm going to choose the Cricut Maker 3 and then click Make It in the upper right corner. If you see this screen, which you may or may not, click on Mat and then choose Continue. And then when you're prompted to prepare your mats, make sure to select Mirror over here in the left column. There we go, Mirror is on. Mirror should always be on when you're doing infusible ink pens. This is really important. Then click Continue and select Laser Copy Paper as your material with default pressure. Place a fine point infusible ink pen, one that measures 0.4 millimeters, in the color of your choosing into clamp A until it snaps in place. Place a single sheet of letter-sized laser copy paper on your blue light grip mat corresponding to the area on your mat where your recipe will be drawn, and load it into your Cricut, and then press the flashing button to begin. Your image may take a while to draw. I recommend you try a couple different things. First, try drawing the image with the complete crosshatch, which means using both of the diagonal lines that we created. This will take the longest. Second, you may try hiding one of the diagonal lines by clicking the eye icon in your layers panel so that you have just one diagonal. This may be plenty of fill for your taste, and better yet, it'll take half the time to draw. How it turns out sometimes depends upon your writing sample, the size of your image, and lots of other factors. And I always keep the outline layer turned on to draw that layer regardless of how many of the crosshatch layers I choose to draw. Now I decided to do my recipe with just one diagonal layer of crosshatch, which took 30 minutes to draw. And I actually didn't notice much of a difference between 1 or 2 hatch lines when drawing it with infusible ink pens. However, I probably would have wanted to use the full crosshatch if I was foiling or engraving instead. Experiment and see what you like the best, but you have the complete range of options with the SVG I provided. When your handwriting sample is done drawing, unload your mat and flip it over. Carefully peel off your laser paper, being careful not to tear the paper.